The NBA Finals. It's what every player dreams of and what every fan lives for. A chance to say, we're champions. It's why we buy the jerseys, why players grind through 3 a.m. workouts in the dead of summer. Hell, it's why they picked up a ball in the first place. A shot at glory, at hearing their team, their city, called alongside the greats. Whether it's Mike Breen, Bob Costas, Marv Albert, or favorite local radio broadcasters.
Season is now complete. The Golden State Warriors are the 2015 NBA champions.
What does it actually take to get there? The best players? The right coaches? Owners? Fans? Is it fate, destiny, or something else? It's the question I set out to answer, and what I found surprised me. Turns out, it's not just coaches. It's not players. It's not just owners, fans, or even those 3 a.m. workouts. It's not blood, sweat, or tears. Hell, it's not even the Reddit debates on r/NBA. It's numbers, specifically 5 of them. After weeks of digging, I found a pattern, a way to ask and answer the one question we all want to know. Can my team win it all? Can they lift that trophy? Be remembered with Kobe, Bron, MJ, Duncan? Can our coaches join the likes of Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr? Can my team become a champion? In this video, I'm going to show you how I found the numbers, what they mean, and actually how they shaped the 2025 season, and every season before that, going back to 1989. A single number that compares every NBA team from any season to an average finals champion. It doesn't care about your age, injuries, coaching style, suspensions, crowds, money, or even hype. It's just a number that might very well explain everything.
NBA champions once again.
After running the numbers from 1989 to present day, 5 stats stood above the rest, the ones that defined a true champion. Wins, margin of victory, offensive rating rank, defensive rating rank, and net rating. Those aren't just strong stats, those are the standard. Match them exactly and your EPI hits a score of 100. This isn't guesswork, this is the blueprint. This is what history says a champion should look like. 60 wins, margin of victory of 7, 5th in offensive rating rank, 4th in defensive rating rank, and a net rating of 7.47. And here's the actual formula for you nerds out there like myself. Since 1989, the NBA has seen 1,078 total teams. Only 57 of them, just 5.3%, have posted an EPI of 100 or better, and just 12 total teams have broken 120. That's only 1.1% of all teams in that span. So yeah, that's not just good, that's special. Here's every single team with an EPI of over 100. You can pause if you want to take a look further. You got the 96 Bulls, the 17 Warriors, but this kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about next. So if you have the teams that have over 100, then obviously they're going to go against teams who are under 100, and that creates a difference. And that is what I'm getting to next. Take a quick look at how Elite Performance Index differences have historically predicted playoff outcomes. When we're talking about an EPI gap or the difference between two teams' scores, the numbers are loud and clear. An 80-plus point gap, perfect 31-0. Gap in the 70s, teams are 17-3, that's an 85% win rate, though the sample is small. A gap in the 60s is still dominant at 31-3. Same with the 50s at 36-3. Even the 40s with 53-11. But once the gap shrinks, that's where things start to kind of get shaky. Now, the gap in the 30s is still about 80%, but once it gets to the 20s, it dips to about 70%. And the gap in the 10s, the record falls to 55-33, which is about 63%. Here's where it gets really interesting. When the gap is under 10 points, the higher rated team actually has a losing record. But with home court advantage, that does improve. So the closer the gap is, the more important home court advantage becomes, which in these cases, it's about 59% in favor of the home team. Bottom line, EPI gaps predict dominance. Smaller ones, anything can happen. The two biggest EPI mismatches in playoff history were 92 Bulls versus 92 Heat, a 141 point gap. Chicago was at its peak. Miami was the worst rated playoff team ever. The 2016 Spurs versus 2016 Grizzlies, a 125 point gap. San Antonio was elite. Memphis had no Gasol or Conley. There was no shot. 4-0 sweep in both cases. EPI gap predicted total domination is exactly what happened. Another thing I wanted to point out before we head to the 2024 season is the average playoff team has an index of 62.74. League average is 29.27, and obviously the championship average is 100. The Boston Celtics didn't just have a great season, they had a historic one. They finished 64-18, led the league in offensive rating, ranked third in defensive rating, and posted an EPI score of 137.49, one of the highest we've ever recorded. Their plus 11.34 margin of victory and plus 11.71 net rating showed just how dominant they were on both ends of the floor. This was their first year without Marcus Smart, who was traded in the offseason as part of the moves to bring in Kristaps Porzingis and later Drew Holiday, a bold reshaping of their core. The results? Immediate. By March, Boston had clinched a playoff spot, a division title, and then the number one seed in the East, all while riding a 7-game win streak. On April 3rd, they locked up the best record in the NBA and home court advantage throughout the playoffs for the first time since 2008. It was also the first time they hit 60 wins in over a decade. Boston dominated the East, finishing 14 games ahead of the next best team, and made it clear this was a team built for a title run. Bro, this Boston team might be the most underrated of all time. The 2024 Oklahoma City Thunder weren't just a surprise, they were a revelation. Coming off a 40-42 season, they hit the gas. After a win over the Rockets in late February, they officially secured a winning record. By March, they had their first 50-win season since 2016, and on March 31st, they clinched their first playoff berth in 4 years. But they didn't stop there. OKC went on to secure their first division title, also since 2016, and more impressively, the number one seed in the Western Conference for the first time since 2013. This Thunder squad became the youngest team in NBA history to earn a 1 seed, breaking a record held by the 2005 Suns and doing it with nearly 2 years less average experience. Statistically, they were elite. 57 wins, number 2 in offense, number 4 in defense, a plus 7.41 margin of victory, and a plus 7.31 net rating. Their EPI score just under 102, ranked second in the league, trailing only Boston and easily outpacing every other West contender. This wasn't a young team with potential. This was a young team that arrived. The 2024 Minnesota Timberwolves were no fluke. They were for real. Coming off a 42-40 season, they returned with a purpose. Led by their core of Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert, Minnesota started slow, but quickly caught fire, going on a 7-game win streak in November and never looking back. By the All-Star break, the Timberwolves were 39-16 and the best record in the West, and head coach Chris Finch earned his first All-Star coaching nod. They were matched last season's win total by the end of February, then hit 50 wins for the first time since 2004. They finished the regular season 56-26, powered by the number 1 D in the NBA, a top 5 offense, and a plus 5.44 net rating. Their EPI score of 90.5 placed them just below the title tier average, but firmly in contender territory. This wasn't just a step forward, it was a leap. Minnesota's transformation was real, and this season proved they belonged. The Dallas Mavericks finished the season 50-32, but for most of the year, they didn't look like contenders. Their full season EPI score of 50.36 painted them as a mid-tier playoff team, not one built for a deep run. At the February 8th trade deadline, Dallas was sitting at 28-23, barely hanging on to the 8th seed in the Western Conference. They had talent with Luka and Kyrie, but the supporting cast wasn't enough, and the numbers backed it up. Their D was inconsistent, their rebounding struggled, and they hovered around league average in net rating. If the season had ended there, the Mavericks would have looked like a first-round exit waiting to happen. At the deadline, Dallas traded for Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, two moves that completely shifted the team's identity. From that point on, the Mavericks had the best record in the NBA, finishing 22-9 down the stretch. Defensively, they took a huge leap. Their interior presence improved, their pace picked up, and the team suddenly looked complete, and the numbers showed it. Post-trade deadline, the Mavericks posted an EPI of 88.07, a massive jump from their season average. That matters, because historically, a score above 80 puts you within striking distance of a title. And when it counted most, that's exactly where Dallas landed. The 2024 Denver Nuggets came into the season as the defending champions, fresh off their first ever NBA title. Expectations were high, and they delivered a strong follow-up. Denver finished 57-25, clinched their sixth straight playoff berth, and remained near the top of the West all year long. On May 8th, Nikola Jokic took home his third MVP in 4 years, solidifying his place as one of the most dominant forces in the league. But when we look at the numbers, there was a slight dip from last year's title run. Their Elite Performance Index score came in at 83.88. Strong but not elite. The Nuggets were steady, efficient, and dangerous, but not dominant. Compared to Boston or even a surging OKC, Denver showed just enough statistical slippage to drop below the top tier. Still a contender, but not a juggernaut. This isn't something unusual though. Time and time again, reigning champs underperform following their championship year. And add the fact that the West was much better in 2024 than it was in 2023. Let's talk about the best of the rest. These teams were all solid, playoff caliber by any measure, but according to the Elite Performance Index, none of them cracked the top tier. The Knicks led the group with a score of 75.45, followed closely by the Pelicans, Clippers, and Suns. From there, the scores dipped. Philadelphia, Indiana, Milwaukee, and Golden State all landed in the mid-50s. The Cavaliers, Magic, Heat, and Kings hovered just above 40, with the Lakers trailing at 35.09. For context, the average playoff team EPI is 62.74, and most of these teams came in at or below that line. They had some talent, some had decent records, but by the numbers, they weren't quite in the same league as Boston, OKC, Minnesota, or even a post-trade deadline Dallas. First round, no surprises at the top. The numbers didn't lie. Boston handled Miami in 5. A 91-point EPI gap made that a lock. OKC and Minnesota both swept. With gaps over 29 points, they were in the 80% win zone. Denver beat the Lakers in 5, right in line with their 48-point edge. New York over Philly, Indiana over Milwaukee, and Cleveland over Orlando. All within toss-up to slight favorite range, and all tracked with the data. The only surprise? Dallas over the Clippers. At face value, it looked like a minor upset, but after the trade deadline, Dallas posted an EPI of 88.07, flipping the gap to nearly plus 27. That's a 68% win rate. And with Kawhi out, Dallas wasn't the underdog. They were the favorite. Eastern Conference semifinals, Boston versus Cleveland. This one wasn't expected to be close, and it wasn't. Boston's EPI score of 137.49 ranked first in the league. Cleveland's just 52.50. That's a gap of 84.99 points, the third largest of the entire postseason. Historically, teams with that kind of EPI advantage are a perfect 31-0, and this Boston team is a part of that 31. The Celtics took the series in 5 games, just like the numbers said they would. Cleveland had a solid season, strong defense, decent balance, but they simply didn't have the firepower to keep up with a team this dominant. Boston was elite in every category, and this matchup only reinforced it. The Celtics rolled. This was a true toss-up. Minnesota's EPI was 90.5. Denver's 83.88. That's a 6.62 point gap, squarely in toss-up territory. The series went the distance, with both teams trading blowouts, but in Game 7 Denver collapsed. Despite 69 combined points from Jokic and Jamal Murray, the Nuggets blew a 20-point lead and lost by 8. It was historic. Denver became the first team ever to lose a Game 7 after leading by 15 or more at halftime. Minnesota advanced, and the data called it a coin flip. Eastern semifinals, Indiana versus New York. On paper, this was a minor upset. The Knicks had an EPI edge of 18.86, giving them a 62.5% win rate, but context mattered. Julius Randle was out since January, OG Anunoby missed time, and Jalen Brunson went down in Game 7. Indiana took advantage and took the series. Western Conference semifinals, Dallas versus Oklahoma City. This one stings as a Thunder fan, bro. On paper, this was one of the biggest upsets in EPI history. Dallas entered with a full season EPI of 50.36, while Oklahoma City sat at 101.99, a gap of over 51 points. Historically, teams in that range win 92% of the time, but Dallas flipped the script. Post-trade deadline, the Mavericks weren't the same team. Their adjusted EPI jumped to 88.07, closing the gap to just under 14 points, well within the upset range. After a blowout loss in Game 1, Dallas stormed back in Game 2 behind 29-point efforts from Luka Doncic and PJ Game 6 Klay Washington, evening the series. In Game 3, Washington led the charge again with 27 points, sparking a 16-0 run that gave Dallas the edge in a tight win. Oklahoma City answered in Game 4 behind SGA's 34 points, closing strong to tie the series at 2 games apiece. But from there, Dallas took control. In Game 5, Luka delivered a 31-point triple-double as the Mavericks won convincingly in OKC to go up 3-2. Game 6, a thriller. Dallas trailed by 18 in the second half but clawed back. Luka notched his third straight triple-double, while PJ Washington hit the go-ahead free throws with 2.5 seconds left after drawing a foul on a 3-point attempt. The Mavericks closed out the series 4-2, becoming just the 10th team ever to overcome an EPI gap of 51 or more. Eastern Conference Finals, Boston versus Indiana. Boston entered the series with an EPI of 137.49, Indiana 56.59. That's a gap of 80.9 points, deep in the 31-0 territory, and once again, the numbers held up. Game 1 went to overtime, but Boston escaped after Jaylen Brown's game-tying 3 and a late surge from Jason Tatum, who finished with 36. In Game 2, Jaylen Brown dropped 40 to give the Celtics a commanding 2-0 lead. Game 3 saw the Pacers go up by 18, but Boston closed on a 13-2 run. Jrue Holiday's clutch steal and free throw sealed it, and Tatum led again with 36 points. And in Game 4, Derek White hit the game-winning 3, capping a 7-0 run to close the game and complete Boston's first sweep in the conference finals since 1986. Western Conference Finals, Dallas versus Minnesota. On paper, this was another major upset. Dallas entered with an EPI of 50.36, while Minnesota came in at 90.50, a gap of nearly 34 points. Historically, teams in that range win over 82% of the time. But Dallas wasn't your typical underdog. Their post-deadline EPI was 88.07, which flipped the matchup into coin flip territory. And in that 50-50 window, the Mavericks dominated. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving came up huge throughout the series, combining for 72 points in the Game 5 clincher. Minnesota stole Game 4 to avoid the sweep, but it only delayed the inevitable. Dallas closed it out with a 21-point blowout on the road, securing their first finals appearance in 13 years. Doncic, who averaged 32.4 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 8.2 assists, was named Western Conference Finals MVP, and the Mavericks moved on. NBA Finals, Boston versus Dallas. This matchup wasn't just lopsided, it made history. The EPI gap between Boston and Dallas was 87.13, the largest in NBA Finals history going back to 1989. Teams with gaps over 80 points, as we know, are a perfect 31-0. Even adjusting for Dallas's post-deadline surge, their updated EPI of 88.07 still left a gap of nearly 49 points, firmly in Boston's win zone. Dallas defied expectations all postseason, but this time they ran into a machine. Boston won the series 4-1 and became the fourth highest EPI scoring champ in the post-expansion era, just behind the 96 Bulls, 97 Bulls, and the 17 Warriors. See, that's what I'm talking about. Underrated as hell. Out of 15 playoff series in 2024, the Elite Performance Index correctly predicted 11. And when you factor in Dallas's post-deadline surge and the Knicks' injury issues, the model's accuracy improves even further. The data didn't just hold up, it told the story ahead of time. Big gaps led to dominance, toss-ups were true coin flips, and once you accounted for context, even the so-called upsets made sense. But not every champion is dominant. Not every title team breaks the scale. So what does an average NBA champion look like? To find out, we go back to 2002. The 2002 Lakers, the most average champion of all time. They weren't chasing records or rewriting history, but they were balanced, battle-tested, and built to win. The Lakers started hot, going 16-1 and hit the All-Star break at 33-13. Kobe and Shaq were both All-Stars. Kobe even took MVP honors in Philly. and they finished the season 58-24, second in the West. From a numbers standpoint, they were almost too perfect. 7-12 margin of victory, number 2 in offense, but 6 in defense, but 7.77 net rating. That gave them an EPI of 102.99, the closest match ever to the average NBA champion. Seriously, by the model, they were just 0.08 points off the average MOV, one ranking spot off the average offense, and right on target in net rating. They were the blueprint. In the playoffs, they swept Portland, beat the Spurs in 5, and survived a brutal 7-game war with the Kings. And no, we ain't going to talk about the no-call elbow to Mike Bibby's face or the phantom fouls Sacramento kept getting. They crushed New Jersey in the finals, Shaq took home his 3rd straight finals MVP, and the Lakers completed the three-peat. Not as flashy as 01 or dominant as 2000, but statistically, the 2002 Lakers were the most average champion the NBA has ever seen. But if they were the blueprint, then the 1996 Bulls, they were the exception. The 1996 Chicago Bulls, the most dominant champion ever. If there's a gold standard in NBA history, it's the 96 Bulls. After falling short in 95, they came back loaded, adding Dennis Rodman and reshaping their depth around Jordan and Pippen. They opened 41-3, went undefeated in January, and didn't lose back-to-back games until February. They finished 72-10, the first team ever to win 70 games and win it all. By the numbers, 72 wins, plus 12.24 margin of victory, number 1 in offense, no 1 in defense, but 13.49 net rating. Their EPI score, 151.50. The highest we've ever recorded. Then they steamrolled the playoffs. Sweep, gentlemen, sweep, title in 6. 87-13 overall, the best full season record ever. Jordan won everything. The rest of the roster? Awards across the board. The 2002 Lakers were the blueprint. The 96 Bulls, they were the exception to the rule. If EPI is a scale for greatness, the 96 Bulls broke it. But this year, 3 teams cracked the top 20 all-time in EPI, including one that made history. Let's break down how good the 2025 regular season elite really were. 3 teams from the 2025 season didn't just rise to the top, they made history. The Oklahoma City Thunder finished with 68 wins and an EPI of 148.3, the second highest regular season ever recorded, trailing only the legendary 1996 Bulls. A young roster, elite on both ends, and historically efficient. The Cleveland Cavaliers quietly put together their second-best season in franchise history. They racked up 64 wins and earned an EPI of 119.95, good for 14th all-time. And the Boston Celtics? They followed up their 2024 title run with another elite campaign, finishing with 61 wins and an EPI of 118.24, the 16th best season since 1989. 3 top 16 teams, all in 1 year. By the numbers, 2025 is one of the most top-heavy and dominant regular seasons we've ever seen. Here's a look at the final Elite Performance Index rankings for the 2025 NBA regular season. Behind the already covered top 3, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and Boston, we saw a steep drop-off. Minnesota, Memphis, and the Clippers round out the next tier with solid, but not elite, seasons. The Rockets made a big leap, while the Knicks, Nuggets, and Warriors stayed in the mix with respectable efficiency. Middle-of-the-pack teams like Milwaukee, Indiana, and even Detroit hovered near 500-level EPI scores. Competitive, but not contending. And at the bottom, teams like the Wizards, Pelicans, and Jazz posted some of the lowest EPI scores we've seen in years. With such a top-heavy landscape, the 2025 playoffs are shaping up to be wide open, but only for a select few. Here's a closer look at the top 7 teams of the 2025 season, according to the EPI. We've already covered the dominance of OKC, Cleveland, and Boston, all 3 ranking among the top 17 regular seasons of all time. Right behind them, the Minnesota Timberwolves finished with an EPI of 78.73, backed by a top 9 offense and top 6 defense. A well-balanced team, even with just 49 wins. The Memphis Grizzlies came in next at 75.04, with top 11 efficiency on both ends. And just before the playoffs, they fired their coach.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
While making this video, they lost in the first play-in to Golden State, so it may work out exactly like anyone with a brain thought it would when making a coaching change this close to the end of the year. The Clippers rode a number 3 ranked defense, while the Rockets posted the 4th best defense in the league, both finishing strong with EPI scores in the low 70s. Western Conference playoffs will start at the top. 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder versus 8 seed Memphis Grizzlies. This one ain't close. OKC's EPI, a ridiculous 148.3. Memphis, respectable at 78.73. But that's a gap of 69.57 points. Historically, when the EPI gap is 60 or more, teams are 31-3. That's over 91%. Thunder should roll unless something wild happens. Next, 2 seed Houston Rockets versus 7 seed Golden State Warriors. Houston comes in at 73.03 while the Warriors clock in at 60.67. That's a 12.36 point gap. That falls in the 10 to 19.99 range, where higher index teams win about 62.5% of the time. A slight edge to Houston, but this one could go either way, especially with Golden State's playoff experience and Houston's lack of playoff experience. I'd honestly lean towards Golden State. From what I have seen, a lot of 10 to 20 point difference upsets come when has a huge playoff experience gap on the other team. Then we've got a flip. 3 seed Lakers versus 6 seed Timberwolves, and this one's a trap. The Lakers are the higher seed, but Minnesota's EPI is 78.73, while LA sits way down at 43.3. That's a plus 35.43 gap for the Wolves, putting it in the 80% win range historically. Timberwolves are the statistical favorite, not the Lakers. 4 versus 5, Nuggets and Clippers. Denver's EPI is 63.69, while the Clippers hit 74.6, giving LA a plus 10.91 advantage. This one lands in that 62.5% win zone, and historically, these matchups are tight. It's about a toss-up, but the data gives a slight edge to the Clippers. Now over to the East. 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers versus 8 seed Atlanta Hawks. This is the biggest EPI gap in the entire bracket, 119.95 to 18.2. That's a plus 101.75 point gap, and when the EPI difference is 80 or more, the higher team is undefeated, 31-0 all time. Cleveland should handle this series with ease. 2 seed Boston Celtics versus 7 seed Orlando Magic. Boston comes in with an EPI of 118.24, while Orlando sits at 29.04, a gap of 89.2. Again, that's in the 31-0 zone historically. The Celtics are overwhelming favorites. Now, a little closer one. 3 seed New York Knicks versus 6 seed Detroit Pistons. New York's EPI is 69.9, Detroit at 46.48, a 23.42 point difference. That puts the Knicks in the 68.5% win range. Statistically, they've got the edge, but it's not a lock. And finally, the closest matchup on the board, and maybe the most interesting. 4 seed Indiana Pacers versus 5 seed Milwaukee Bucks. Indiana's EPI is 53.23, Milwaukee's is 54.09. Not even a 1 point difference. This falls in the 0 to 9.99 range, where the higher index team only wins 45% of the time. But whoever has the home court, they win around 59% of the time. So Indiana gets a slight boost, but it's a true toss-up. So what does it all mean? If history holds, OKC, Cleveland, and Boston are nearly automatic. Minnesota should surprise as a lower seed. Houston, Clippers, and New York all have solid statistical edges. And Pacers Bucks, that one's a coin flip. But remember Dallas last year? They had a trade deadline that turned their team around. I wonder if anyone had a decent trade deadline move.
Dave, we're just receiving word of a massive trade in the NBA. The Lakers have traded Anthony Davis to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Luka Doncic.
What?
In a 3-team deal. You can listen to that on SportsCenter later on tonight with Kevin Connors and Amina Smith after this game. They'll have
On the night of February 1st, 2025, the NBA world was flipped on its head. Luka Doncic, the face of the Dallas Mavericks, the 5-time All-NBA first-teamer, the man who led them to the finals just a year earlier, was traded. The Mavericks sent Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers in a shocking 3-team deal involving the Utah Jazz, receiving Anthony Davis in return. It was the first time in NBA history that 2 current All-NBA players were traded for each other mid-season. No one saw this coming. Luka was seen as untouchable, the kind of generational player you build everything around. But behind the scenes, there were cracks. Reports leaked almost immediately. Dallas had grown concerned about Doncic's conditioning, his training habits, and his diet. GM Nico Harrison, a longtime Nike exec with deep ties to Anthony Davis, didn't mince words. Defense wins championships, he said. And in his eyes, Davis embodied the two-way culture Dallas wanted to build. But for fans, the move didn't land well. Protests broke out outside the arena. Some demanded Harrison's firing, calling the trade a betrayal. Others pointed to the money. Luka was eligible for a $350 million Supermax extension, and Dallas reportedly didn't want to pay it. Team Governor Patrick Dumont added fuel to the fire when he said, "If you want to take a vacation, don't do it with us." Davis, meanwhile, waived a $6 million trade kicker to make the deal happen. Financially, it gave Dallas luxury tax relief, flexibility, and a way out of a looming Supermax dilemma. And what about LA? Since the deadline, the Lakers have gone on a 52-30 pace, posting a 60.07 EPI, which ranks top 10 in the league over that stretch. Luka has thrived in purple and gold, giving the Lakers the most potent young offensive weapon they've had since Kobe. LeBron may have passed the torch, and the Lakers might have found their next dynasty piece. As for Dallas, only time will tell if this was a genius cultural reset or one of the biggest miscalculations in modern NBA history.
Off the glass to end the first quarter in dramatic fashion. Is an opportunity to make a memory.
Jimmy Butler can do here.
The Golden State Warriors made a serious move of their own and put the league on notice. In a multi-team blockbuster, the Warriors acquired Jimmy Butler from the Miami Heat. In return, Kyle Anderson and Andrew Wiggins was sent to Miami. Dennis Schroeder went to the Utah Jazz, and Lindy Waters III lands with the Detroit Pistons. Schroeder eventually went to Detroit as well in a separate deal. Golden State also sent out their 2025 first-round pick, top 10 protected. And since the deal, Golden State's been on a tear. They've been playing at a 61-win pace with an elite performance index of 115.29, fourth best in the league. They rank 9th in offense, but number 1 in defense, locking teams down with postseason level intensity. Their margin of victory sits at plus 9.3, and their net rating is a clean plus 9. The type of balanced championship teams are built on. Jimmy brings grit, playoff battle scars, and that killer instinct the Warriors have been missing. Steph can still light it up, but now he's got a wing who can take over late when the game gets tight and the buckets get tougher. Golden State didn't just add a piece, they added an edge. If the numbers hold, this isn't just a playoff team. This might be the most dangerous version of the Warriors since the dynasty days. And that's going to wrap it up. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Seriously. This was a deep dive, and I wanted to show just how much the Elite Performance Index can explain when it comes to playoff matchups, team strength, and historical context. I'll be dropping shorter videos going forward, but I had to give the full breakdown this time to really show how the EPI system works. Once the play-in games are wrapped up, I'll be back with a full 2025 playoff prediction video based on EPI. And right now, I'm also working on something I've been wanting to do for a while, all-time player rankings based on EPI style modeling. But it won't stop with just the NBA. I'll be building EPI rankings across multiple sports, releasing them weekly, including the NFL and the college football, using the same kind of data-driven lens to break down the greatest teams, forgotten dynasties, and even the trades that shaped entire franchises. I'll also dive into past NBA drafts, trying to find quantitative patterns to evaluate picks and scouting decisions. So if you're into that kind of content, if you like smart, historical, stat-driven sports breakdowns, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay locked in. Because this channel is all about using numbers to tell the real story. And here's the crazy part. Since 1989, EPI has correctly predicted around 73% of playoff series. Take out the coin flip matchups, and it climbs to 79%. So, yeah. Stay tuned. We've got a lot more to break down. I love you guys, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it.